if I drink beer in the evening, am I going to ruin my gains? Like, that's a good thing to think about too. It's just, how can this add into your life without taking away from what other things you're working on?
I'm always worried about your gains.
Yeah, man. I mean, we don't need to talk about this now, but like I was benching the other day. I haven't benched in years, but go ahead.
This is something you can think about at both your parent brand level and on a per product level.
4 plates, Cody. I mean, you wouldn't know what that even means. Hey, Cody, what's up?
Not a whole lot, Isaac. How are you doing today?
I'm doing phenomenal. Cody, today we're going to be discussing the first of our 4 exclusive newsletter subjects from our 2025 Beer Branding Trends Report. Listeners, you can go read this report over at cododesign.com. We will link to this in our show notes as well for anything cool or relevant that we talk about today.
And just as a quick recap, this is our long-form annual overview on what we're seeing shape the beer and beverage industry this year and over the next few years, for that matter, from a branding perspective. So what are the branding and portfolio strategy moves we're seeing? What brand architecture models are most prevalent? And what beverage styles, approaches are trending? And
what we're talking about today is one of 4 sections that we've pulled out that we are sending only to our Beer Branding Trends newsletter is how you say that word. Subscribers, 95 or 10,000 of them, somewhere in there. 4 exclusives we're going to be doing today, which is how to future-proof your flagships. We're also going to be talking in the coming weeks, how soon should your brewery jump on a trend? Is a cannabis beverage right for your brewery? A lot of different considerations there. And then finally, how legacy breweries can sell more beer. If you'd like to receive those insights, build a stronger brand, sell more beer, just up your overall knowledge about beer branding and marketing, head over to beerbrandingtrends.com. If you're listening to this, you're probably already subscribed. So we're just wasting your time now. Okay, flagships. Cody, let's talk about them.
Let's. Let's actually back out for a little bit of context. Craft beer has always had innovation kind of at the heart of it. From the very beginning, it's just made as a full flavored beer to contrast mass market industrial lagers. And this is ramped up to a fever pitch from 2010 to, let's say, somewhere around 2018, 2019. All the name of the game there was new. You always had to release a new beer. And then seltzer happened. There's a 4th category now. It gave brewers and beer drinkers permission to make other stuff, non-beer stuff. But we're kind of getting the sense that consumers are over it, at least to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that there are many markets across, and we're just talking predominantly United States, but I think a lot of the places around the world experience this with a mature market. A lot of markets just have dozens and dozens of identical breweries making basically the same styles. I mean, there's like very little innovation, quote unquote, happening today.
The irony there is, if you look at it that way, it's kind of swung back around to a commodity.
Yeah, it really has.
In a sense. You had a stat in here from Bart Watson. According to the Brewers Association's 2024 mid-year Harris poll, Bart reported that 37% of survey respondents said there was too much or more than enough brands available today. And this was after a year that saw about 1,000 fewer new brands than the previous year.
A lot of numbers there, but basically a couple of years of heavy rationalization across the industry, and then consumers are still saying there's still too much. So that's the TLDR. So where does all that leave a brewery that's been hanging its hat on, like you mentioned, 2010 to like 2020, let's just say, or maybe even beyond 20. I don't know that number matters, but just constant innovation. We've been pumping out 50 or 70 new beers a year, packaging many of those obviously in our tap room. So what do you do with like in the face of these sorts of numbers and stats and findings?
I mean, what we're seeing and hearing in our project work, the idea that this is an opportunity to reinvest in your flagships and find sustainable growth there.
Yeah. And so we're seeing this as a major through line in our work over the last year. This includes breweries making, just in our client list, 75, 80 plus thousand barrels, down to folks producing just a few thousand. We're seeing a lot of project work right now come through Codo anyway. It centers around how to revamp your flagships, how to bring new focus to your portfolio, and how to really simplify things for consumers. So it's actually good that we backed out. That was a good call, Cody. let's keep going here and explore a handful of things that we've heard that our clients and that maybe our listeners here should consider to ensure that their flagships thrive in the coming years. So our first idea, I just had this up too. I think our whole episode is going to be like this. I just lost the email. There it is. Do your flagships need to live under a branded house, or can you have some sub-brands in the mix as well? Please tell me about this.
Sure.
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 Okay.
Yeah!
So, reshaping your portfolio. This is a brand architecture. I don't want to say problem, but it's a brand architecture concern. And there are a variety of ways your lineup can come together. A branded house is different from a collection of sub or endorsed brands. That's going to be different than a house of brands, on and on and on. And we've seen a natural inclination, and maybe this is a holdover from craft beer's heyday, but we've seen a natural inclination to have your flagships look the same, particularly when building a branded house. So just to address that head on, your labels, your packaging, your different SKUs, they do not have to look identical to fall under a branded house. The line or the trigger point here that helps you decide what brand architecture model is appropriate and then how to actually design your packaging comes down to which brand is the main purchasing driver.
If a beer has its own unique name, like a fanciful name and label, but is still clearly positioned as being from your brewery itself, then your parent brand is the main purchasing driver. So the reason someone's buying the product, this means you're still building a branded house. I feel like this is something we might go back on when we rewrite the Beyond Beer handbook and use better examples or more diverse examples, rather. It's really common for us, including like when we present about this at guild presentations and stuff, seminars. We use like really clear branded house like Prost or Rheingeist, like breweries whose packaging all looks identical because it's an easy way to drive that point home. But you do not have to have like completely identical packaging to be under a branded house. I think we probably made that point already. But anyway, do your flagships need to fall under a branded house, or can you have some sub or endorsed brands in the mix as well? I think that's kind of what we were initially trying to talk about here.
There are no general rules here, and you should do whatever best serves your operation and your customers. A common approach we're seeing right now is to have a tight collection of flagship brands that are all clearly from your brewery. And then maybe you would also have a separate horse brand that may still have some tie to your parent brand. That can be as a sub brand or an endorsed brand. And you're starting to scale the sub brand ladder there and spin it out into its own family. So I know we've talked about that in the past. So think like the line from Sierra Nevada, think Voodoo Ranger. I recently saw Big Grove out of Iowa do this with their Easy Eddie line. So no. You don't need a branded house entirely, though you will likely have a few flagships that do live under that system. Is that clear enough? Clear as mud?
I don't know. We'll let the listener decide. I don't know. Your mileage may vary. It's clear enough to me, but I understand what we're talking about. Next point, you actually touched on this. Your brewery should always be looking for opportunities to scale the sub-brand ladder. I don't want to speak in absolutes. You should probably consider looking for opportunities to scale the sub-brand ladder. You mentioned that, Cody. Please tell me a little bit more about it.
When it comes to your flagship line or lines, I think there are two subtle shifts you should make in how you view your portfolio. At first, think about these brands as platforms. So what opportunities exist to spin your sub-brands out to stand more on their own? How can you extend these brands via line extensions and variety packs and things like that? How can you take these independent brands into new spaces and occasions to credibly reach new audiences and sell more beer? Secondly, you can think about how your parent brand should evolve, along with changes to the flagship brands themselves. So what happens to your parent brand if you end up with a sub-brand that outshines its parent, which happens? People come to us with that situation pretty regularly. What changes do you need to make at the parent level, including brand architecture, marketing, even corporate structure, if you find yourself in that situation?
And without kind of opening it up and talking for 10 minutes just about this, I'll tell the listeners to go to the show notes and check out our sub-brand summer series there for more on this specific topic.
Sub-brand summer series is good. I would also point people to the Beyond Beer handbook.
That sounds like a really interesting, you said Beyond Hand Beer book. What was the book title?
This is the Beyond Beer handbook, and you can check this out at beyondbeerbook.com.
Okay, excellent. So Beyond Beer Book, was it .biz or
Yeah.
.corn? All right. Our third point in this exclusive newsletter topic that people should definitely read, and it's definitely worth their time. This is actually a provocative question. Does a flagship have to be a beer?
That's spicy, but it's not really so controversial here in 2025, I don't think.
No, it really isn't. It's just, I don't think that people, their minds automatically go there. So, and we're seeing plenty of brands go this route. It really comes down to priorities and what you're pushing, like Hoppy Refresher from Lagunitas. Deschutes has an NA beer flagship. I think they consider it a flagship. And I guess that's maybe still a beer, but I think we'll count it in the spirit of what we're saying here.
And this is kind of a function to anybody's time they've spent in the market. Things like brand equity and, I don't know, legacy, if you want to think about it that way. But most brewery flagships will be beer, but I wouldn't let this limit anyone who wants to do something else. If you see an opportunity in front of you to prioritize and promote a Beyond Beer brand up to top billing and you think that's going to work, I would say go for it.
We were in, this last year's been a blur. We were in St. Louis a while back. I think I saw Quirk from Boulevard. That's a seltzer line, I think, but pretty big damn brand for them as well. So you could argue whether or not that's flagship. But anyway, our next point here, we'll just move on, is how to safely leverage your brand equity. So specifically, how far can you extend your brand? This is something that we're very, very interested in and always discussing with our clients.
And we started this conversation by pointing out that innovation is slowing down. Consumers are tiring of chasing all the new, all the different, keeping up with the production treadmill.
It's too much.
Yeah. People are getting overwhelmed. Building on a previous point about spotting opportunities to build sub or endorse brands within your brand portfolio, there will also be opportunities to extend your existing brands to create new products that your customers and wholesalers and all those guys are going to be excited about. And we're seeing this all across the beer industry today.
Powered right through that. Good job. Okay, yeah, keep going. And you're still powering through. All right.
You're paying me by the minute.
the word count.
I've got this email pulled up here, trying to look at a bunch of examples. So Sierra Nevada extending their Little Thing family with several new styles and dedicated variety packs. Bell's building out Two Hearted into a proper brand family.
Little Thing's a really good example. So a hazy IPA is what started it all. And now they're into a wide variety. They got a wheat. They've got another pale. I mean, they got a lot of different brands that are not what they initially started with. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah. Oscar Blues has fully scaled the sub-brand ladder with its iconic Dale's brand. Rogue leaning into the Dead Guy brand family, complete with a Spirits brand extension. So good stuff there. And I'll leave with a few words of caution on this point. And this is just general brand architecture caveat here. Any extension you make, it needs to be slow and methodical. These are not going to be cash grabs. This isn't something where you can hop in, hop out. Treating them like this could tank any momentum you've built up. And there's nothing wrong with starting small. Test the waters in your home market. See how fans react. Listen, take notes, and refine before launching into a bigger presence.
And this is going to shift for every brewery, obviously. But I think a safe move today would be to make whatever big move you've got planned. Once you feel like you've rounded out your portfolio, your individual sub-brands, like you're kind of happy with where you are right now, don't be afraid to slow it down for, I don't know, 6 months is probably not long enough time, but 12 months, 18 months, let consumers catch up, continue marketing and brand building, get people to understand what your priorities are, what your portfolio looks like, including wholesalers, and when people should be drinking your beer, and then start to reassess rather than just, well, I don't know, this isn't working. Let's just throw a new one in, a new one in, a new one in. I mean, it's too much. So our next point is a quick one. And that is that I won't say should, but might plan for continual refreshes. So we included a large section on package refreshes in the 2025 Beer Branding Trends report, the broader one on the website. But this concept applies to this specific exclusive newsletter as well, which is future-proofing your flagship. So moving forward, you will need to work extra hard to stay top of mind with your customers. And a package refresh, what we're seeing and hearing in our work and from our clients, can be a great way to achieve this. Depending on what pain points you're addressing, this can be a subtle fresh coat of paint or a more dramatic change, whatever opportunities it is you're moving on. Either way, a refresh and all the marketing and POS and everything that comes with that can be a great way to get a bump in sales, incremental or hopefully even bigger. So is that good enough there?
I think so. Should we talk about the sustainability idea here? I know we discussed pulling that out into its own episode maybe at some point.
Yeah, we can discuss it quickly. So the point that we make in the newsletter is that hanging your hat on, so we hear this constantly, which is good. I'm not frowning on it. We hear constantly people talking about sustainability and bringing these practices into their business, which is cool. This may seem counterintuitive to folks, but we don't think that hanging your hat on this positioning is really a strong move right now. This is very, very, very important to younger folks, Gen Z folks. I mean, hell, it's really important to really anyone that's environmentally minded. Sustainability is shoved down our throats all the time. It's one of the most important, it's as positioned as one of the most important things we need to be thinking about, as one of the most existential threats facing our society, et cetera. And I agree, this is going to become an increasingly important idea in our lives over the coming years, and it is important. But back to the main topic of flagships and sustainability. Will this idea create new positioning opportunities for your parent brand and individual flagship brands? Does it make sense to go all in on this idea from a positioning standpoint? I'm trying to set you up to take it and run. Is that enough for you to take the next leg?
Sure. And we have to kind of speak generally here, but across the board, at least for immediate sales, it doesn't seem like the best move. And then this isn't coming from like a political stance or anything like that. We think this is an important issue, and we personally strive to be more sustainable in our own production whenever we can. But similar to what we're suggesting here, we don't lead this.
Yeah, I don't know that Kodo ever really talks about it at all. And that's probably my fault, but it's like more of a core value that we live by and not really, like scream to the hills. But yeah, we don't really talk about it ever.
No. And I mean, we sit around on our computers all day. There's not a lot of
fake business.
Yeah. I mean, really, like this is sustainability decisions come down to what our clients can afford is what it is.
All right. Back to the point. Let's try to make some sense of this, because I feel like I'll speak for me, haven't made a very clear idea. We don't think this is the right move for most breweries right now. Fat Tire is the best example of this right now, of a brewery going all in on the sustainability idea. New Belgium completely repositioned the brand around environmentalism. Sales data shows that it hasn't really remotely even touched moving the needle, though if they can stick it out for another 15 years as we enter the climate wars, who knows? Another few things to mention here. And the big reason we feel this way, I mean, to try to actually add some real data to this, is the value action gap. I don't even know what you call this, Cody, like a social psychology phenomenon, something like that. It's where consumers will very loudly signal and say that they care deeply about a thing, a cause, a value, but then shop in a way that completely contradicts or doesn't support that idea. So driving your car to a Stop Oil protest, or using your iPhone to tweet about how bad Apple's terrible manufacturing and labor practices are. Pointing these out kind of makes me feel like a boomer, which I am to some degree, but I think they illustrate the idea well. I like the idea of sustainability. When it comes to younger folks and signaling about how much they care about environmentalism, like using their Yeti mug, their big Hydro Flask bottles and like that to show how environmentally minded they are. This stuff's all expensive, right? You mentioned it there a moment ago, but especially like for a producer, for a brewery, I mean, using more environmentally friendly production techniques, like on brewing stuff, but also kind of more in our lane, which is like package design and formatting and everything like that. It's just more expensive. So it's easy to signal how important it is, but for consumers that are at the end of it, like that have to maybe bear the brunt of that cost, it just probably won't align with the things that they say they care about. I mean, I don't know if that is clear or not, but that's kind of what we're driving at here.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of a reality. Like, I'm not going to say if that makes you a good or bad person or not, but it's just a constraint on our lives.
I want to be clear. There's no value judgment really on anything at any point of this chain. It just makes you human. I mean, I feel like this is a good times thing that we can talk about. Like when the world isn't on fire, we can talk about like these. And again, this isn't a political statement about the last 5 or 10 years, but like when your house is not on fire, you can talk about like bigger social issues and environmental issues. And when your house is on fire, it's like, oh, maybe we need to work on putting this fire out. So anyway, you should know that before you decide to wholesale shift your positioning around sustainability, just be aware of all this. Now, devil's advocate, there are a lot of brands, and I can maybe hear the listener thinking this, there are a lot of brands that do center, maybe outside of beer, that do center around sustainability successfully. Patagonia, right? A lot of outdoorsy brands do. We just don't see a lot of them in beer or beverage that I can think of.
But then they make a lot of jackets with like PFAS chemicals on them.
Oh, yeah. Look, man, there's blood on
a lot of forever chemicals
blood
gear.
on all of our hands. It's okay.
Yeah, but let's walk this back just a little bit. We're working with Brewing right now out of Ontario, and their entire brewery is built around sustainability. This was a day one core idea. Still informs every aspect of their brewery and what they do.
Every single thing they do, yeah.
And I'm certain there are some people who are listening to us right now who care very deeply about this idea. So for listeners in this camp, like, what, do they just not like talk about sustainability at all? Is that the remit?
No, of course not. And it should be in your messaging. And I think that you can start messaging about sustainability now without going all in on it from a position like Fat Tire. Like, we're the sustainable beer brand. That is a very clear choice, but much different than talking about how they are built from the ground up as a sustainable brewery, and just like that's a thing they do because whether or not it's good or hip or cool or fashionable, they're going to be doing it. So making it an important key messaging pillar and regularly talking about it is fine and should be done, but don't make it your most important message.
While you were saying that, a client jumped to mind. Our client, Kettle House, is striking this balance really well. Give some examples here. They're heavily invested in environmental initiatives, from solar capturing, partnering with local farmers, supporting environmental nonprofits in their home state of Montana. And their ethos extends to their really gorgeous amphitheater out in Bonner, where they sell canned water and use all compostable cups, plates, straws, etc. Treat their own water, all this stuff.
Don't quote me here, but I think they were canning water just for sale there before Liquid Death kind of took over the world too. So I think they might have missed the boat there, but but yeah, they were doing it. I mean, just again, as a way to like, let's remove plastic and trash like that from what the flow or the chain here.
I mean, even with all of those measures in place, sustainability is just one of Kettle House's communication pillars. It's not the lead. It's a core value that would guide their business decisions, whether or not they could talk about it in their marketing. And in that way, it augments their broader positioning as being Montana's craft brewery. It associates them with the outdoors and all the beauty they have there. By sprinkling this into their messaging now, they're in a position to scale this idea up over time as it becomes more relevant, as it wanes, as it becomes more effective as a differentiator or kind of a key insight that their customers are looking for, whether current or potential, when they're shopping for beer.
Yeah, that's a great example. And we might expand on this idea in a standalone episode later. It would be good to maybe pair this up with specific case studies, projects we're working on. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll cut an episode on that later. We've got a few more points here. Let's keep going. I'll mention this one. We can kind of skip over it because it's self-explanatory. And that is that you need to invest in storytelling and content marketing. Our main point in this specific section of the newsletter is that people learn through stories. Real, authentic, compelling stories is why, oral stories been passed down through millennia. It's just a way that we kind of take in and remember information. And as algorithms continue to change and email filters change and people's media consumption habits continue to change and evolve, the one thing that's not going to go away are just how important stories are as a way of communicating ideas and marketing. So think about your brewery's brand and your individual flagships themselves in terms of stories and how you can connect with people in a deeper way. No matter what channel you're on, think about stories, story. And whoever tells the best story is going to win in the end. So our final point here is related to this idea. Do you have anything to add there, or can I keep going?
No, keep rolling.
Final point. I really like this idea. When it comes to future-proofing your flagships, you need to remember what you are actually selling.
This goes back to the marketing axiom of people don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill bit. They want a 1/4-inch hole, right? And if I sound like a 70-year-old guy that works at a hardware store there, this is a good way to think about your customers and their motives. This can be kind of awkward to think about in a beer context, I think.
From a brewery standpoint, like, I get the drill bit metaphor. Okay, cool. But we're selling hazy IPAs to people who enjoy hazy IPAs. We do think that breweries should keep this idea in mind to ensure that their flagships will remain bestsellers moving forward. So people are emotional. We all are, whether we like to admit it or not. And signaling and status govern almost all of our decisions. And this is really most apparent, immediately apparent, in the things that we buy. So for you, the brewery listening to this, you're not just selling a 6-pack or a 4-pack of beer. You might be selling social connection. My friends like this brand. If I show up to the game night with this 6-pack of whatever, they're going to like me. You might be selling identity and self-expression. I'm outdoorsy, so my beer should be too. The coat that I wear, the truck that I drive, or the car or the bike, whatever. You might be selling experience and adventure. I need to head to the mountains for a few days, and this beer is aspirational and tells that story. You might be selling relaxation and stress relief. The ability just to unplug and not think for an hour. You might be selling a great buzz after a week. You might be selling a celebration. Your spouse got a promotion or something like that. The divorce came through, whatever. Like we can all celebrate this stuff. It's supporting a local business, just knowing where your money goes, that can be a value in and of itself. You can also, this is a real big one that we've talked about many times in the show here, but nostalgia and tradition might be what you're selling. My grandpa used to drink Hamm's beer. I'm speaking as Isaac now, not metaphorically. Like my grandpa used to drink Hamm's and PBR. And so whenever I have those beers, I think of my grandpa, even if I'm at a concert and it's loud as and I have no idea what's going on because I'm old now. I drink a Hamm's at a concert and I think of my grandpa. So you're not just selling beer, you're selling what the beer does for people.
Think great flavor or just a sensory experience.
Hell, probably could have led with that. Yeah. We talk about blueberry beer, right? I mean, we talked about that, Wachusett. We talked about that in our last episode. I mean, just flavor forward is a real big deal. And how many beyond beer and functional beverages have we worked on over the last few years that it's just all about health? So I wake up at 5 every day and I hit the gym, but then like if I drink beer in the evening, am I going to ruin my gains? Like that's a good thing to think about too. It's just how can this add into your life without taking away from what other things you're working on?
I'm always worried about your gains.
Yeah, man. I mean, we don't need to talk about this now, but like I was benching the other day. I haven't benched in years, but go ahead.
This is something you can think about at both your parent brand level and on a per product level.
4 plates, Cody. I mean, you wouldn't know what that even means, but
when someone buys one of your flagships, what are they really buying? What problem are you solving for them? And what story can they tell the world about themselves just by purchasing, repping your brand, having a cart full of your stuff? What does that mean? Big, heavy cart.
that I can't push because I'm not. What are we talking about? Oh, future-proofing your flagships. Yeah. So this is a powerful way of approaching your brand, I think. And we think the more breweries should be thinking about it when revamping their flagship lineup. So now that we've talked about deadlifting and bench pressing and whatnot, let's wrap up our first exclusive topic from our 2025 Beer Branding Trends Review. And our next conversation is going to be a fun one, which is how soon should your brewery jump on a trend? This is something that we have talked about writing about for a few years, and we finally did it here. Hopefully it's still timely. So
yeah, it should be an interesting one.
Yeah. And it's going to be really valuable for folks that are considering any sort of new innovation. I know we just talked about how important flagships are, but innovation still exists. So if you're thinking about anything new, how should you jump on this? Cannabis is a real top of mind, buzzy example, but this extends well beyond that. So check out links in the show notes, read our 2025 Beer Branding Trends Review, head over to the site. We'll catch back up with you all very soon. Cody, I'll see you in the gym.
I will see you in the Iron Dojo.
The dojo, that's right. Iron Paradise.
Thanks for listening to Beer Branding Trends. If you like what we're doing here, if you find this valuable, please rate and review us over on iTunes. And head over to beerbrandingtrends.com to join more than 5,000 subscribers who receive our monthly email newsletter covering strategy, currents, and actionable advice from Kodo Design, a branding firm on the front lines of beer and beverage branding. Take care. We'll catch back up with you soon.